Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our fourth quarter webinar for both appraisers and our credit union clients. More work, please. Tracking the 2022 housing crisis, I'm calling it a crisis, and a bit tongue-in-cheek, I'm not sure if it is, and its impact on the appraisal industry. I'm going to say some things in here. I hope they're not too controversial, but we're going to go over some of the incidents of this year, which you are very familiar with, talk about the impact on the appraisal industry, and talk about other couple of things that are coming out in the news right now. Typically, these webinars last, I'm sorry, my security thing came up. These webinars last us, probably about 40 minutes maybe at the most. And just so you know who I am, my name is Sally Carruthers. I am the CEO President of True Union. I am also an appraiser. So I feel your pain, guys. I understand where you're at. Everybody on the webinar is on mute, so you can't actually talk. It just makes it go a little smoother. And if you have any questions, my name and email address will be at the end. So feel free to contact me. I like hearing from you. So what do we have right now? I think the easiest way to say this is that we have a Fed-forced possible housing crash. We certainly have a housing market decline, and the housing market definitely has been brought to its knees by the soaring mortgage rates. Mortgage rates have risen considerably, and in a extremely short time. At the beginning of, or actually, I think towards the end of January, the rates were still hovering just under 3%. And last week, they tipped over 7%. They might have gone down a little bit, but we still haven't seen a lot of movement on them. They're still hovering right around that 7% mark, which is 81% higher for a 30-year fix. So of course that has a huge impact on the housing market. We know why the Fed has raised interest rates. It is in a reaction and an attempt to quell inflation and stop it. And it was intentionally to have a major effect on the housing market, what was considered an overheated housing market with rising prices, and an attempt to keep that down. About a third of the inflation is in housing, rent substitutes, that kind of thing. So yes, we see why that happened. So the effect of this interest rate is kind of interesting because we had an interesting market before we went into the rate increases. We had a huge uplift in the housing market, not just because the interest rates were low, but also because we had a lack of inventory. So we had a supply, undersupply, and an increased demand because of the low rates. Simply put, we just still, to this day, do not have anywhere near enough houses in the United States. We can't build them quick enough. Even if there is a reduced demand, we still need to build housings. And the simple reason for that is from the Great Recession, when home construction came to a grinding halt for probably 4 or 5 years. So now we have this big stick in the housing market, a standstill. Buyers and sellers are stuck. House prices are beginning to fall in some of the hottest markets, some of the really overheated markets. I mean, you hear stories about Des Moines, Iowa, or something where things went crazy. But the problem is that those high house prices have not come down enough to make up for the higher mortgage rates. So most potential buyers just simply cannot afford to buy. Somebody who whose income qualified for a $300,000 home in January at less than 3% won't qualify for that anymore. And then sellers, who are typically buyers, right? You sell a house, you're going to buy another. Don't want to give up their lower mortgage rates to purchase. You're going to give up a 3% for a, 5 or 6%. And renters can't afford to move because they've been kind of not qualified out of the market. So there may be a potential for house prices to go down, but if house prices are going to go down, why are you going to buy now when they're high? So everything has kind of come to this grinding halt because of these, unknown factors and known factors. So people aren't moving from their houses right now. People aren't qualified to buy homes, and people, don't want to buy them now because the prices are still high and they think they might come down. So we're at a standstill. And then, there's still volatility of the mortgage rates. Are they going to raise any higher this year? The Fed is still saying that they are going to, I think, go up 0.5% or whatever, maybe not. Inflation came down a little bit, and that impacted the 10-year Treasury. So that brought down the interest rates a little bit last week. We haven't seen much of a movement from that, even though they dropped from something like 7.22 down to 6.62. The one thing I think that we can pretty much say, I don't think that the rates are going to double. You're going to come back and say, Sally, you said that, but look what happened. But I think, hopefully we're not going to go from 7% to 14%, and hopefully, cross our fingers, we're not going to go into double digits. There are folks who are in the housing market now who don't remember. I'm old enough to remember the days in the 80s when rates were well into double digits, but many people don't remember those, and they don't remember the rates going much above 5. Personally, I think they're going to just kind of settle right around that 6.5%, 7%, but just for a little while anyway. Having said that, is the housing market going to, put back up again, when mortgage rates start to go up or go down? And then, are we going to have any more houses coming onto the market? So there are some really kind of questionable things going on right now. There is a lot of unknowns, a lot of volatility, and I think it's just kind of freezing this market right now. I saw this really interesting statistic this week. This wasn't in our webinar that we did on Tuesday. And basically, a homeowner now must earn $107,281 annually to afford the $2,682 monthly mortgage payment on the typical U.S. home. And I think that's about a $350,000 home, something like that. This is up 45.6% from $73,668 a year ago. That is crazy. So a year ago, to afford the average home, you had to earn $73,000 or $73,000. Now you have to earn over $100,000. Over $100,000 to afford an average home. That is crazy. So, some of you are old timers, some of you are younger, and when you talk to people, they're like, oh, it's people have to save up their money to buy their houses. Well, you could save as much money, try and save as much money as you can, but you're not going to qualify to buy a house in the market you live in. And certainly the market I live in, and many of you, many more of you. This home affordability statistic comes from Redfin, and they actually list, I think, 40 of the top MSAs, and they show the lowest number to the highest number, as well as the average number. I mean, I think that I want to say that in San Francisco, it was like nearly 300,000 to afford an average home in San Francisco, whereas Dayton, Ohio, I think was one of the lowest ones, around 50,000. So there's also such a change and such a lack of uniformity throughout the country as far as home affordability. In different areas, you cannot afford to buy a home. And that impacts for you guys out there appraising, the amount of appraisals you're doing. And then you become a statistic of the home. I mean, it's a circle, right? Same with you folks who are in the credit unions too. It impacts everybody. So very interesting. Look at that article. I think if you just go into Redfin News, you can see that article. It's very good. So then the other thing that kind of pops up and people talk about is, are we in a recession? We might be. I don't know. I know that other parts of the world are in a recession. I was just in England, and they are in a recession, and I kind of put here that often a recession is not just triggered by what's happening in this country, but the global economy. A recession, if we are in, could weaken the housing market even further. But I don't think we're going to get a repeat of what and most experts, I should kind of caveat this whole webinar by saying I'm not an economist. I just kind of pick up things from other people and play around with it. But, most of the really smart minds, which I'm not, are saying that we won't have a great recession. And I think that's because we put up a lot of barriers and roadblocks to make lending much more safe and secure than it was prior to 2008. So I don't think we're going to see anything like that in the real estate market. Even though unemployment might get up there, and it seems like incomes are stagnating, a lot of people still have very low interest rates and have fairly affordable payments on their homes. So hopefully we won't see a lot of foreclosures in the way that we did in the Great Recession. The other thing that the brilliant minds are saying is that a recession is likely to be short and won't last long. And the bright side is that if the economy, I apologize for this, I am in a borrowed office today with a very loud clock. But if we do go into a recession, it's likely their interest rates might drop again. So, and the housing market might just lead us out of the recession if that happens, and things start to come unglued, and all of a sudden you guys are busy. So very interesting kind of thing. Now, you guys are not surprised that when we talk about mortgage applications, the applications have dropped probably to about the lowest level since 1997. And I do remember that. We'd had an amazing kind of refi boom coming out of the 80s. And that was a very busy time for appraisers, and in a similar way to what it has been here, now recently in the last 2 years. So I have to say that, the applications are down because the housing market has become increasingly unaffordable because of the Fed's hawkish policy path. I think that, put the blame on the Fed, understand what they're doing, but what they've done is really yank the affordability factor from people and stop people from being able to afford homes. I think that there are other alternatives out there. We've always become hooked on the 30-year fixed mortgage rate, and that was, and it's been a good rate, and I think was, a result, safety from the Great Recession. But more and more people are looking at adjustable rate mortgages, and there are a lot more safeguards around that, I think, than there were before. So some different financing out there. Appraisal volume, oh, what a surprise, it's down. I didn't have to tell any of you on the name, it's basically the name of this seminar, right? I don't have to tell any of you that during the pandemic years, up through the end of 2021, appraisers just saw a record volume. It was incredible, the kind of volume that appraisers were doing. And, you know, all the chatter everywhere about appraiser capacity and, you know, do we have enough appraisers? Do we have enough appraisal waivers? And why don't we start using desktops? You know, and in, you know, all a reaction to the fact that we, you know, the volume was up, and you know, we were not just having a record kind of purchase time, we were also doing a lot of refinances too. And those appraisal waivers, you know, were working on the purchases, but not on refis. And there were some alternatives for some of the lenders on refis, but, you know, we still picked up a fair volume of those. But as you can see, this only goes through June of 22, but obviously volume has decreased quite a lot. And I'd say a lot more since even June of 22. You probably had some legacy stuff in there before then, but it is absolutely way down right now. And I don't have to actually tell you that. The good news, a lot of people want to claim appraisal waivers, but pretty much when you look at the stats, appraisal waivers have very much kind of hovered around that 10% of all purchase transactions. Couple of things on waivers. They kind of basically saved our butt during the pandemic years. I don't think we could have handled the kind of volume if we didn't have that. And as you can see, you know, that they did kind of rise in the peak. Amount of them did rise. So they are a good thing. I would like those to start going down as we have less to do. But the fact of the matter is you still have to have appraisals, you know, because the appraisals feed the model for the appraisal waivers. So Fannie and Freddie will only give appraisal waivers when there is data, sufficient data to support it. And that data obviously comes from your appraisal reports. The UAD data is what I guess, you know, allows this to happen. So the good news is they still need appraisals because they still got to feed the machine. So we're not going to be totally put out to pasture right now. So although, you know, it may feel like it right now, but that's just really to do with loan volume and not to do with the alternatives out there as far as waivers and that type of thing. So I want to talk about appraiser fees and turn times. Let's just hit on turn times through right now. You guys, the appraisers out there, you guys don't have a lot of work. I don't think, I would be very surprised if any of you have a lot of work. Some of you might do. I think, first of all, you're very, very fortunate to work primarily for credit unions. Credit unions have seemed to, they've weathered this storm much better than other lenders, particularly the large mortgage companies. I think that's because they have loyal members. I think they have different kind of products they're able to offer, not just a traditional conventional mortgage. So they've weathered the storm much more. But everybody is expecting shorter turn times, competitive turn times, as the, you know, as appraisers are less busy and there aren't the capacity issues. And we've seen our turn times go down, I think, right at the peak of the pandemic years when we were at our busiest. Probably we've seen 12-day turn times were down to right around 6. So you guys are doing a really good job on turn times. But what I want you to understand and watch with some of my competitors or our competitors, some of the predatory AMCs out there. A lot of appraisers want to offer competitive fees in order to get an assignment because you're not busy. So the thought is, if I'm a little more competitive on my fee, I'm going to get the assignment. Let me tell you who's making money out of that: the AMCs. They have set fee agreements with their lenders, credit unions in our case. We have to do that because those are the fees that get disclosed to the member or the borrower in any case. So when you offer a competitive fee, that money is going into the pocket of the AMC. I just want to let you know that. That is what is happening with some of these predatory AMCs. And so what I think a lot of our appraisers are seeing out there are more of the kind of bids and broadcasting of assignments coming out of some of those larger, big AMCs. We're very transparent. We let our credit union know what our fee is, what your fee is. We're not going to get rich. We don't want to get rich on the back of our appraisers. We know what we need to have to as a reasonable management fee for what we do, and your fees are customary and reasonable. It is not impacted. It is based on area and what is customary and reasonable for your market. It shouldn't be based on I don't know, volume or not volume, that's not the right way of saying it. Shouldn't be based on just the fact that there's less work out there, so people are hungrier. So I always have a problem, and I had a problem during the other side of that, when some appraisers, and I'm sure it's not anyone on this call, when they were yanking up the fees to because to get because they wanted that's how they kind of would get the assignment. So anyway, I kind of, that's my 2 cents worth. I think fees are fees. They should be customary and reasonable, and everybody should be transparent. And I remember those who kind of those appraisers who wanted to charge us exorbitant fees during the rush times, and we have long memories, but be careful on the other side about lowering your fees just to get an assignment, because that money often will go into the pocket of a predatory AMC. I'm going to get in trouble with all my competitors now for saying that, but I just know how that system works with them. So market changes. So, we talked about how this, you guys, the transactions are down, and the real estate market kind of is glued right now. And so you are going to see the repercussions of that in your market. Do not get caught up on the hype. I have to kind of emphasize this to you. All the time there's stuff coming out of the newspapers and everything else about this and that and whatever. And be very careful, because real estate markets, as you always know, are local. So it might be that and it might be on a national basis that rates are up, but local areas have differences and have different kind of sets of supply and demand. I live in an area where there's a major firm employer that is bringing in, they're relocating 2,000 people into our market, taking them out of other markets. Now that's going to impact our market right here, but it's also negatively going to impact those markets that they take them from. So things can be very different on a local basis to what is going on nationally. So make sure that you're looking at those trends and making sure that you have them on a local basis, from MLS and locals data studies and those kinds of things. And remember that the hype right now is that, oh, you know, prices may be decreasing, but we don't know. Price is actually the last thing that ever changes. Everything else, you know, happens. A house, when it sells, has to go into contract, or it has to sit on the market, then it goes into contract and whatever. And so the price is the last thing to change. And so, or the trend in pricing can change. So look at, you know, what is happening in your market. Are days on the market getting longer? Are you know, sellers offering concessions? Haven't had that in a while, have we? I mean, for a period there, we were having buyers offering concessions to get the contract accepted. So we're going to flip around, and I think we're going to see some kind of concessions from sellers. You know, look at list to pending ratios. You know, we had the crazy situation where property was selling above list price. It's going to start going down, if not hasn't gone already. And they're going to be that old thing that we didn't see for 2 years, which are price reductions. Inventory levels are probably starting to creep up. And length of days on the market could be, again, up to your market. And then in your market, there may be a lot of new construction or no new construction, and that has a huge influence on your on what is happening in your market. You may be a fully developed market, or your area may be a fully developed market, and new construction doesn't have any impact on the other side, the building houses like crazy. So consult with your peers. This is huge. You know, as appraisers, we kind of a little bit of a cottage industry sometimes. We all want to kind of tuck our head down and work. But I know many of you do belong to local organizations, some of them formal, some not formal, coalitions, and just buddies, people that, you know, mentors or whatever. So, you know, now is the really important time to be very kind of cognizant of that communication with your peers and looking at what they're doing, because markets are changing. So most I'm talking here about residential appraising, and there's lots of types of appraising that you can do. So, you know, I've got here obviously purchase. I'm going to talk about that. Refi is pretty dried up. You're not going to see a lot of that. I'm not going to talk much about that at all right now because it's just not there. New construction. Great thing about working for credit unions. Credit unions do a lot of new construction. We also finance land appraisals. HELOCs, investment properties are, that still stays as a pretty consistent type of appraisal work. And then private appraisals, obviously, I think you know, if you're smart as an appraiser, you always want to have a mix of private appraisals in your toolbox to do, whether those are you know, divorces or probate work, or you know, helping people set purchase price, whatever that is, tax work. I think it's always good to have a certain amount of appraisal work in your firm that is not reliant or not interest rate driven. It takes something to get relationships to do that, but I think it is quite important to have. Purchase appraisals, I'm going to talk about these. Purchase typically secondary market driven. They can be very much influenced by rates going up and down. They are impacted by the amount of appraisal waivers, although those are kind of staying down. Understand, if you're doing purchase appraisals, lenders are offering borrowers often the choice of a desktop appraisal. That does not happen a lot with credit unions. They're not doing a lot of desktop appraisals, and that really is because I think that they don't have a great appetite for it, and they don't, you know, kind of feel, because that has to be a buy-in with realtors and borrowers, they don't want to do it. Still, the purchase market is the primary source of business for credit unions. if you are doing purchase appraisals, be very aware of fair housing issues. We're going to talk a little, can't do a webinar without talking about fair housing. There are now risk flags from the secondary market, Fannie and Freddie, on undervaluation, and particularly appraisals that come in below contract in predominantly minority areas, and there is some data around that, and so that is something to be aware of, and we are talking about. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. New construction. You guys not doing new construction, you really need to. It is still going, and it's still going gangbusters in a lot of areas. We need to build up a housing inventory. We still need to build houses. It doesn't matter what kind of houses they are. It doesn't matter if they are, you know, $200,000 homes or $2 million homes. They are still building houses. The construction industry, though, has been severely impacted by supply chain issues. I was going to say this. This is like, for me, this is a little personal. I am in the process of building a house and have been for a year, and it is it's horrendous, actually. You know, for me, it was roof trusses. Then it was inspections. Then it's getting the box for the electrical boxes. It's crazy. But there is still a demand for new construction and a demand for appraisals. So be aware of those items of supply chain issues. And with that, you know, I think a lot of construction costs have stabilized a bit, but you know, sometimes they are high, and you have to be very aware that, you know, silly to tell you all because you know this, that cost doesn't equal value, but there may well be some economic depreciation in your cost approach based on just the price. In other words, the price they're paying to construct this house does not equal value, and so some economic depreciation that reflects that difference. So continued new construction is a very strong indicator that we still have a very different economic situation to the Great Recession, when construction came to an absolute stop. So I think that that's a good thing, and I think it's a good thing to keep on doing it. So land appraisals, if you're not doing them, do them. I actually happen to think that land appraisals are very difficult to do. And the first thing that's really difficult sometimes is just finding the land that you're supposed to appraise, right? And one of the common things we get is, oh, the appraiser appraised the wrong land. But they are hard to do. But credit unions do lend on land, and it's very popular right now because a lot of people will buy some land and they're going to hold it for future development, you know, when the current economic situation gets a little better, or construction costs come down, or something like that. So unlike, you know, your big mortgage companies in you know, some of the banks, you'll find that credit unions are lending on land, and this is a good source of work for you. So HELOCs. Now, I'll tell you that credit unions right now are scrambling, doing as many HELOCs as they can. And basically very popular right now with homeowners. They're trying to tap into some of that equity they have in their homes. And so very, very popular. For most credit unions, like other lenders, the primary source of valuation is an automated valuation model. They're cheap, they're quick, and over the years they have become very accurate. I think we use the same. We use actually a cascading model, and we kind of meet the requirements for an AVM. We have a confidence score on it, and you know, a lot of times it is a very good source for evaluation. However, if a confidence score isn't high enough, or and the confidence score is based on, because it's a cascading AVM, it's several AVMs making up one value, and the confidence score is based on the difference between those different AVMs. So if it's a low confidence score, it means there's a wide range of values coming in. So so if that confidence score doesn't, isn't high enough, credit union will go ahead and order an appraisal. So we're still seeing quite a few appraisals coming out of HELOCs. There are some credit unions still don't use AVMs. They still want to have an appraisal done. Most of the time they're not underwritten to secondary market standards. It's kind of important to know, because I think a lot of appraisers just kind of appraise them exactly the same as they would do a purchase or something like that. And the biggest thing I see, or the issue I see with that, is that some appraisers will do a subject to appraisal. Most HELOCs, if you see that the purpose of the appraisal is for a home equity line of credit or home, second mortgage or something, you're really being asked for an as-is value. So if there is some issue with deferred maintenance, cost to cure and adjust for it in the grid. Because they're not going to ask or not going to escrow any money for that to be fixed. So, and often, people are borrowing the money to fix it anyhow. So, so bear that in mind, that usually for HELOCs, they're wanting an as-is value. So that's about, kind of the main thing I'm talking about, as far as our volume, and I know where you guys are standing, but I also want to talk about a couple of other things, or one major kind of thing that's coming out right now out of FHFA. FHFA is what overlooks the secondary market, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And they just released this, what they call the UAD aggregate statistical data file. And basically, they're making statistics from all your valuations open to anyone, me, you, borrowers, and it's aggregate. It's not, like 56 North High Street, the appraisal that Joe Bloggs did on that is aggregate statistics. So there's a lot of things that are showing that are available for people to look at. One thing I'm going to say about it is that this is somewhat dated. I mean, we're up through 2021 on the statistical data file, but also there is a fair housing element to it. So there is a dashboard. There are dashboards that appear on these data files, and there is a fair housing element. And I'm actually going to show you that. Kind of sometimes a bit weird when I switch screens here to get you to. So this is right here, as you can see, this is the Uniform Appraisal Data, Aggregate Statistics Fair Lending Dashboard. And so on the left-hand side is the percentage of appraisals that have come in below contract price. And as I said, the concern with many people is that under the high minority areas are underserved by lenders, and that values in those areas have been traditionally low, and that means that people haven't had the investment, they don't meet the criteria to buy homes or refinance homes or start businesses and that kind of thing. So one statistic that they look at to be able to assess that is the percentage of homes that come in below contract. So that is on the bottom, then obviously the years. So we're going to kind of look at mostly 2021. And so it keeps refreshing back to New York. I don't know why it comes back to New York, but I thought there was a kind of interesting statistic in here. I was comparing, I'm sure I've got some people here from Ohio, but Columbus, Ohio versus where our office is in Dayton, Kettering. And so if you look in 2021, the red one is Columbus. So you see, you know, it was kind of, and you're looking at, this is where the minority population is anywhere from 50 to 80%. So there are a large percentage of under contract appraisals in Columbus, Ohio, you know, versus the actual national figure. So we got the national figure right in the middle there, and relatively low or lower, 10% for Dayton. Now, what is interesting, I noticed, I switched this around and I did it to a percentage minority of 80 to 100%. So that's a predominantly non-white area. And you can see that statistic for Dayton goes way up in comparison to Columbus and the national figure. So this is a very interesting kind of dashboard, and it is being used. We're being asked to collect data on this and measure our appraisals against it. And in the markets that we work in, and probably we're in the process of doing some audits based on it. But this is available to absolutely anyone. This is out there on the web. There is, you can look up the UAD aggregate statistic data set dashboards and get it yourself. So I think that some due diligence, I guess, around appraisers or additional work might be necessary. I think, and I'm not saying you have to do this, and I'm not accusing anybody of being biased or any way, but I think it is smart to be cognizant of where you stand as far as the census tract you're working in. And you can go to FFIEC and find out data on the census tract you're working in. So here, this is the data set for an address I pulled up in Nashville, Tennessee. And you can go to the demographics for that area under population, and you can see that this has a 60% minority. So if you are probably coming, if you do happen to come in below contract, if your data is pointing to that and you came in below contract in this census tract, you know, it is possible your appraisal could get flagged. So I think it's a good idea to know that. I think that use the information that's out there to know that your appraisal could get flagged, and that you may have to do additional due diligence, explanations, data verification to ensure that the data you've used and the appraisal you provide is totally unbiased, which I'm sure it is, but use that information. We are in the process of probably putting together a QC element around this for our clients. Each of our credit unions is being audited on fair housing issues. So they're being asked about this during examination. So we have to have processes. We already have processes in place to protect them and protect you guys on this. So I think there are some really good stats out there for you to be able to use and really be able to assist with some of this information. So that is the aggregate status database. And you see the dashboards. There are other dashboards there, but the Fair Lending dashboard is the one that you're looking for. Fair housing considerations, never before, it's only I think it's only in the last 2 months, has there been an undervaluation flag on the Fannie Mae SSR. below contract is a file too, and I put a link in this, and this will go up on our webpage for you to look at your census tract to figure out if the census tract is in a predominantly non-white area. That is it. Let me see, 45 minutes, yes. My name, again, Sally Carruthers. Here is my information, pretty easy, scarruthers@trueunion.net. If you have any questions, any comments, anything else, I really do welcome them. And we really appreciate everybody. We appreciate all our appraiser partners out there. We are doing everything we can to make sure that you have as much work as possible. And we appreciate all our credit unions who are working very hard to ensure you have a lot of work. So this too will pass, and we have survived this before. So good luck to everybody out there, and happy holidays as that comes close. Thank you very much.